Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today on Hercules and the Space Gods, we explore Mars and Martians. And I have with me our intrepid explorers into things unknown and perhaps unknowable. We have the one and only Nick Curto. We have Tim Swartz.
Hey.
We have Tillie Treadwell.
Hello.
We have Setna West of Ancient Chem. And then we have the one and only Brian Walker of Brian's Drive-In Theater. Greetings and welcome, explorers.
Hello, Hercules.
We will start tonight with Nick Curto, who's director and founder of the Disclosure Network New York and of the Urantia Book Readers Group, also in New York. Greetings and welcome, Nick. How are you?
Great, Hercules, never better. I wore my red for our theme tonight of the red planet Mars.
Thank you very much for doing so. And what can you tell us about the red planet?
Well, okay, Mars is a dry, rocky, and a bitter cold planet. Mars is one of Earth's two closest planetary neighbors. Venus is the other. Mars is one of the easiest planets to spot in the night sky. Just look for a bright red point of light, and that is Mars. Mars is also known as the red planet. It is because Mars is covered in soil, rock, and dust made from iron oxide, which gives the surface a red, rusty color. Mars is named after Roman god of war. Mars has two moons called Diomas, I hope I'm pronouncing this, and Probus.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And they are named after the two horses that pulled a Roman god of war, Mars' chariot. They may be asteroids that were captured by Mars' gravity. That's interesting. Mars is the fourth planet from the sun. It is 141 million miles away from the sun. It would take 300 days, around 8 months, to get there from Earth, as we know it now. Mars is smaller than Earth, with a diameter of 4,217 miles. It makes this second planet from our solar system. A day on Mars lasts 24 hours and 37 minutes, which is fairly close to us. 1 year on Mars is 687 days long. That is 1.9 Earth years. This is because Mars is further away from the sun and takes a little bit longer to orbit it. Its tilt on its axis and Mars is 25 degrees, a tilt, which means that the planet experiences seasons like we do on Earth, because different parts of the planet are closer to the sun at different times of the orbit. Mars has a thin atmosphere made up of 95.9% carbon dioxide and 2.7% nitrogen. The atmosphere is so thin that it's not thick enough to trap the sun's heat. So it's very, very cold there, ranging from minus 100 Celsius to in winter to 20 Celsius in summer. Mars has a very weak gravitational pull, which is about 37% less than Earth. And that means that on Mars, you could jump 3 times higher than you could on Earth. Mars is a terrestrial planet because it's hard rock and surface. Its northern side is full of flat plains, and the southern side has ridges and craters. Mars' surface has many channels, plains, and canyons, which could have been caused by water erosion, water wearing against the surface many, many, many years ago. That could be evidence that water was there at one point, billions of years ago. Also, Mars experiences violent dust storms powered by the sun, which can last for months. The dust storms can completely cover the planet and continually change the Mars surface. Mars is home to the dormant volcano, the largest volcano and the highest mountain in our solar system. Now that's interesting. It is 16 miles high and 600 kilometers across the base, making it 3 times the height of Mount Everest. Wow, that's pretty amazing. The biggest crater on Mars is 5,300 miles from end to end and covers 40% of the planet's surface. Mars also has the largest canyon in our solar system. It's 4 miles deep and stretches thousands of miles long. Also, Mars has north and south poles like Earth does. The polar ice caps are covered with layers of frozen carbon dioxide or dry ice. Another interesting fact is that as it is close to Earth, Mars is the planet that humans will probably set foot on first. And we all know there's plans right now. We set out a Mars rover, which are the robots, of course, on missions to explore Mars and collect samples of rock and scientific other data. Some of the rovers include Viking 1, Viking 2, Mars 2, Mars 3, Spirit, Phoenix, Pathfinder, Curiosity, and Opportunity. There is no evidence of life on Mars that we know of. However, it is a planet that is with best conditions supporting life, and scientists believe that it's a potential for life under the surface because they found water ice just under that surface of Mars. So there's a lot of potential there.
Thank you so very much, Nick. And is the mountain on Mars Mount Olympus that is the highest mountain? Because they have a Mount Olympus there. I don't recall if it's the highest or not, though.
I will check that. I got to go back to you on that one.
Okay, and also just some factoids, since I speak from the place of Greek mythology and Roman mythology. In some mythical systems, Phobos and Deimos, the moons of Mars, were considered the sons of Mars, or Ares, as is known in the Greek. And the planet of Mars was originally called Fiery, Piraeus. But later on, when they borrowed from the Babylonian system of naming the planets, they changed it to Mars to correspond with the ancient Near Eastern ways of classifying the deities. And Mars was considered to be the chariot of Ares as he rode it through the sky. In Greek, the word planet or planeta means wanderer. And there were the fixed stars that were on the firmament, and they kind of stayed where they were, wobbled a bit seasonally. And then there were the planets, which seemed to wander with a will of their own until they mapped out where they were going in the night sky. And so they considered the planets to have a will of their own, and that's why they associated them with the gods. Thank you.
Hercules, I just found the answer to your question.
Okay.
The dominant volcano on Mars, Olympus, and then Mons.
Mons mountain, yes.
So that's confirmed.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so very much, Nick.
Welcome.
And now we go to Tim Swartz, the one, the only publisher, writer, researcher, editor. What can you share to expand this picture that Nick's sharing with us?
Well, sure, Hercules, and thank you for having me on tonight. And, I'm going to be talking about Mars and the role it's played really with humanity looking beyond Earth on the possibilities that there may be life out there elsewhere. So now we've come full circle with the debate on whether or not we're alone in the universe. In Western Europe during the period from about 400 years ago until really the 20th century, the question of life beyond Earth seems to have been less of if and more of what. There was the assumption that the wealth of life on Earth was simply repeated elsewhere out there. All right. In other words, there was no "are we alone" question being asked. Instead, the debate was already into the details of how life elsewhere in the cosmos went about its business. Let me pull up my crib notes here real quick, Hercules, just to make sure I get all the names right. But in the 17 and 1800s, we had astronomers like William Herschel, who not only suggested that our solar system was overrun with life forms, but they were also giving estimates on, say, like how many life forms were living on the rings of Saturn. All the way into the 20th century, the possibility that Mars had a more agreeable surface environment and therefore life still carried significant weight, although there had been some extreme claims, like from people such as Percival Lowell and his canals on Mars. That was very prominent in the late 18 and early 1900s, though most other astronomers at the time largely disagreed with his interpretations of what he was seeing. But pop culture seized on Lowell's ideas of Martian canals, which meant not only life on Mars, but intelligent life. This remained potent in all the genres of science fiction all the way up into the mid-1960s. Now, Nikola Tesla in 1898, while he was in his laboratory in Colorado Springs, said that he received what he interpreted as intelligent signals that were not from this earth. He would later write in an article in Collier's magazine that the signals could have originated from Mars, since that was the planet scientists at the time thought most likely to have living, intelligent creatures. Now, a few years earlier, a Swiss spirit medium by the name of Helena Smith, I think I'm pronouncing her first name correctly, which was a pseudonym for Catherine Muller, claimed to have contact with people living on Mars and was able to speak their language, which she wrote down during her seances, as well as she did like automatic writing of sketches of the landscape, the Martian landscape, and the people and creatures who lived there. So during these sessions, Smith, speaking in Martian, by the way, talked of her flight into outer space and then seeing Mars, which long ago she said looked similar to Earth. She said that Mars was now peopled with disembodied spirits, but at the time was home to intelligent life. So now she spoke of carriages gliding by with no horses or wheels, but emitting sparks. She spoke of houses with fountains on the roofs and human-looking men and women dressed almost the same. Now, Smith produced not only colorful paintings of Mars, but she also produced a glossary and alphabet of the Martian language. Now, all of this is described in the 1899 book From India to the Planet Mars, which you can still find today on online bookstores and also for free if you just Google it and find some PDFs of it. Now, in 1909, another spiritual medium by the name of Princess d'Atuni claimed to have a similar ability to contact the Martians through psychic trances. Without spiritualism, according to Aduti, science would never obtain a full understanding of Mars. As she described to the Los Angeles Times, standard scientific instruments were of no practical use when it came to communicating with other planets. Instead, she said psychic methods were the best and safest options. So now, in the early 20th century, as radio took off, so did stories of communicating with Mars. A magazine article from 1920 called Hello, Earth, Hello, writes that Marconi believed that he was receiving signals from other planets, possibly Mars. Now, as well, in in 1909, American astronomer David Peck Todd attempted communications with Mars by taking flight, I'm not kidding, in a hot air balloon loaded with telegraphic equipment. Now, I would think that he would later probably wish that he had used psychic methods, as I don't think that a balloon flight in 1909 would have been very safe or comfortable. But there was also a Dr. Hugh Mansfield Robinson. He was a London lawyer and former town clerk of Shoreditch, England, who said in 1926 that he was in telepathic communication with inhabitants of the Red Planet. Robinson said that his communications were with a Martian woman by the name of Umaruru. That's a mouthful, Umaruru. He said that the Martians were more than 7 feet tall with huge ears and large shocks of hair. But other than that, they were pretty much like humans, living in houses, driving cars, and enjoying simple pleasures such as a cup of tea and smoking pipes. So Robinson even went so far as to making arrangements to transmit a message to Mars on the wavelength of 18.240 meters. Not just once, but he did this 3 times. The first attempts were transmitted from Rugby, the most sophisticated wireless station in the world at the time, and the message was of 3 words. Now, I'm going to try to say these as best I can because, I'm getting this from text, and there's no phonetic spelling with these. Opesti, Nipatea, and Secumba, and their meanings remain a mystery. So now postal clerks who handled the wireless telegraph system stood by with receivers tuned into a wavelength of 30,000 meters, which Robinson said the Martians would respond on that wavelength. But sadly, they received no response. And as well, the following 2 other attempts also ended in failure. So, Hercules, I'm going to leave it at that for now. And as we continue with other episodes on Mars, I'll get more into how Mars became part of the UFO phenomena, both with the contactees and in pop culture. But I'll leave it at that for now. And thanks for allowing me to blabber on tonight.
And thank you for bringing that to the table. That certainly expands a great deal on what Nick established, and it leads us into Tillie's presentation, because in Tillie's presentation, the information that you shared extends now into our views of ancient astronauts and reconceptualizes what the contactees shared. So thank you so very much for doing that. And I plan on continuing this for at least 1 more session next month. So I look forward to your presentation.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it greatly. And hopefully I can share some fascinating information tonight.
I'm looking forward. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you. In the tapestry of mythology, few threads are as vibrant and dynamic as the tales of Mars, the Greek god of war, and other potential Martian peoples. Let us tonight explore the captivating concept that some on Earth may trace their lineage back to the Red Planet itself. As we embark on this cosmic journey, let's begin with the very essence of myth, storytelling that transcends time and space. Mars, known as Ares in Greek mythology, emerges as a multifaceted deity with attributes that mirror the complexities of human conflict. In the rich fabric of Greek mythology, Mars, or Ares, emerges as a figure both feared and revered depending upon the human culture. His domain extended beyond the battlefield. Mars was a force regarded to be both behind the chaos and the courage that defined the human experience. Transitioning from the Greek pantheon to the Roman, Mars takes on a dual role as the god of war and of agriculture. The Romans, ever pragmatic, intertwined the martial aspects of Mars with the fertility of the land, creating or perhaps describing a deity with influence extending from military might to the cycles of nature. Now, let us examine a more speculative piece in this possibly cosmic narrative. Could there be a genetic lineage that ties Earth and Mars together? Could Mars be more than a distant neighbor? Could it also be a distant ancestor? And could it be that some of us carry the echoes of Martian ancestry in our very DNA? The detailed and long-lived human accounts of a people we call the Anunnaki may hold the answers. One such account allegedly resides within the cuneiform tablets themselves. Cuneiform tablets, the ancient script of Mesopotamia, stand as cryptic artifacts offering glimpses into the beliefs and narratives of ancient civilizations. Among the many tales preserved in cuneiform, a particularly intriguing narrative emerges, one that weaves together the Anunnaki, the red planet Mars, and the enigmatic creation of the human race. This I find important, as creating a cuneiform tablet was reported to be a rigorous, careful process. Cuneiform tablets were created using a writing system known as cuneiform, one of the earliest known forms of writing in human history. Here's a brief overview of the creation process. Scribes used soft, damp clay as the medium for writing. The type of clay varied, but it was typically a mixture of water and riverbank clay. Scribes used a wedge-shaped stylus typically made from reeds or other plant materials. The wedge shape gave the writing system its name, cuneiform, derived from the Latin cuneus, meaning wedge. The scribe pressed the stylus into the clay, creating wedge-shaped impressions. The depth and angle of the stylus determined the form of the characters. After the inscription was complete, the clay tablet was left to dry in the sun or fired in a kiln. Sun-dried tablets were more susceptible to damage from moisture, while kiln-fired tablets became more durable. Once dried or fired, the tablets were ready for use. Cuneiform tablets not only took a considerable amount of time to create, but are some of the very oldest written communication known to humankind. Surely there must be something to the tales, then, of the Anunnaki creating and mingling with human people. Would this society truly have gone to such effort only to spread otherwise major falsehoods? Nonetheless, currently there seems to be no firm genetic evidence. There are yet other theories that bolster the assertions about the Anunnaki creating humankind, though. Zecharia Sitchin, typically considered a controversial scholar, created a series called Earth Chronicles, which explored the Anunnaki theory through the lens of the cuneiform tablets. Sitchin suggested that the Anunnaki hailed from the 12th planet Nibiru, and that their interaction with Earth involved genetic engineering, linking the creation of humans to advanced extraterrestrial knowledge. It seems that he and some other theorists believe that Nibiru and Mars have been confused for each other over time, and that Mars may not play quite the role it has been assigned over the ages of human development and storytelling. It seems to me that the enigmas of Mars, Martians, and Martian lineage remains a mystery in the genetic tapestry. But what do you think?
That is a great question. I could add some observations. The relationships with the gods differed from place to place in the Mediterranean that used the Olympian pantheon. In the Etruscan pantheon, for instance, Martus or Mars or Ares was the son of Hercules and Athena, or Hercule and Minerva.
Oh, wow.
And he symbolized humanity. So the bonds between Mars or Ares and humanity were very strong. So he was the representative in terms of the planetary occultism of the planet Earth itself. So it is very possible that we have an ancestry in Ares, because the god of a people is usually their divine ancestor. So thank you for that. That established a very firm foundation for Setna to build what was known about Mars in ancient Khemet, or ancient Egypt as we know it.
Well, I want to start with where they think the beginnings of their knowledge from Mars was, I want to bring up the Egyptian goddess. Maybe she's invisible here. Hold on, I'm going to change my pattern. This is the goddess Neith. She is the goddess of time and creation of people's destiny. They say that she lives in a red cornelian, red crystal palace, as it were, on Mars, made mostly of ruby. These are raw rubies. And cornelian. Now, to those who do chakra balancing and crystallonomy and all these interesting things, this cornelian is a stone designed, they say, to enhance thinking and making decisions. And so they say they attribute this to Neith and to Mars. I always keep it like this. This is an ankh that holds my cornelian. This ankh also, they say, is kind of a living being, and mine has arms. You'll see many of them with just a little circle with the line through. This energy says that I'm bringing the knowledge to myself. Neith, they say, from her palace, her throne on Mars, finds the light that's going to become the energy that will be the soul that's before conception. And she starts like a spider to weave her web and create, or like a tapestry to create her design for us. The Egyptians believed in predestiny in a certain way, but they also believed that, like a piece of fabric, things can be moved and changed. And so the destiny is sort of a commedia dell'arte, meaning a rough script that is not unsubject to transfer for change. Enter into that whole situation the god Ptah. Now, if you look, he looks like he's wearing a spacesuit. Couldn't you see a dome around here? And he's got on this beautiful sort of lizard-like, a kind of a onesie, like a spacesuit, and a collar, and he's carrying a thing called a wasp staff, which I also have on the god Khonsu, which is here. And it's got an ankh, the Jed pillar, which was the symbol for the god Osiris, the god of eternity, and then a very long staff. And he's also carrying the crook and flail, which are the symbols of royalty. He is a moon god, but he's also known to consult with Neith on Mars. So the Egyptians thought Mars was a very important place because it was a place where knowledge began, intellect began, and our souls begin. So on that note, I'm going to kind of turn that back to Hercules and ask what you think, Hercules.
What I think is going to unfold from January for at least a year. And
Okay.
what I think is just basically my particular perspective on things. I've been studying the ancient planetary occultism, I guess you can call it. Not so much astrology, but the astromythology. And I've been comparing it to what the contactees have been saying, and also what people like Swedenborg have been saying, and what ancient authors in what's called ancient science fiction, where ancient Greeks and Romans travel to different planets and heavenly bodies. And in these systems, the word planet and the word plane are kind of used interchangeably, because not all of these places are physical like our Earth, or like Mars, or like the moon. Some of them are obviously different dimensions. And even Swedenborg would say that the planets that he wrote about might not be in a place where we can perceive them.
Well,
So,
the last thing I was going to say
mhm.
about this is that when your soul, when your theory, your script was written, the energy goes in a red dragon, like this one. This is an iron dragon, back down into the Earth's surface, Earth's energy, and between the male and female, the energy sparks, and the soul enters the mother, and it's kind of like a pre-programmed disc, boom, into the brain, And now the child has a pre-programmed consciousness and a destiny to follow, as it were. And that is given to them by Neith on Mars.
And I'm going to invite all of you to represent the voices that you've been sharing and the research that you've been sharing on the new adventure as well, because I have a most excellent set of scholars here. And I wish we had more than an hour to delve deeper into all of the topics that people have brought up tonight.
Well, that was the thing. I didn't want to be too, too wordy. There's a lot of people here that also need to speak, and I'm not a selfish person.
You're an awesome person, Setna.
As are you, my dear friend.
Thank you. And now, last but not least, we go to Brian Walker of Brian's Drive-In Theater. And Brian has built a shrine on the internet that's been there for over 25 years. And it celebrates mostly what we call B movies or retro movies. And he's continuously improving it. He's been doing so for the past quarter century. And lately he's outdone himself with the upgrades. And if you visit it, it's still very retro, though. Just like the Conspiracy Journal, it remains a shrine to retro planetary and cryptid inquiry.
Can I greet Brian in a Martian way? I want to just say,
there you go.
And Hercules, the most retro thing about my website is the HTML code used to write it. That's really retro, let me tell you. When I was doing some research for tonight's movies, for tonight's podcast, that is, I wanted to sort of stick to the old tried and true. I also mixed in a few newer movies, but the first one I wanted to talk about is Red Planet Mars, which is a 1952 film and an early film for the exploration of the other in the form of an alien. Before World War II, a lot of the monsters that you saw on screen were vampires, werewolves, Frankenstein, Invisible Man, that ilk. After World War II, when so many people had seen real horrors in the world, and there was also the beginnings of a space race going on as well in the late 40s and early 50s. A lot of producers and screenwriters picked up on that, and Red Planet Mars is the result of that. It's a United Artists release starring Peter Graves, who you'll remember from Mission Impossible and any number of cheesy 1950s science fiction films, and Andrea King, who in this movie is a brunette, but oftentimes Andrea King is sort of an ice cream blonde. An interesting choice for this movie. Actually, the movie, rather than it does have science fiction overtones, obviously, but it's really an allegory for the Cold War, and it's a very Christian tale. And what I understand about religion probably wouldn't fill a thimble. So, if somebody is better versed in Christianity than I am, but please correct me in all of this. The movie is kind of shocking in that essentially everyone dies, and this is not an upbeat, feel-good movie, whatsoever. And it's a U.S. versus the Soviet Union film, and Mars sort of the sci-fi elements gets pulled into that, and it's an interesting take on the Cold War, and it is early on into the 1950s. And as I said, not an upbeat film whatsoever. It is public domain, however, and as such, you can find copies of it anywhere, such as archive.org. Obviously, YouTube has it. Any number of other streaming services also have it, and the copies are decent. Probably the best film with Martians that came out of the 1950s is War of the Worlds. And that's with Gene Barry and Anne Robinson and Les Tremayne. By the way, the actress Anne Robinson is still with us today. She's 94 years old. She was very young when War of the Worlds was produced in 1953. She would just have been 23, 24 years old. And I am connected to Robinson's son, who is Estefan Bravo, who is a musician in his own right, and sort of an interesting character there in social media land. I see a lot of his posts, and we interact sometimes in social media, and he has a really interesting perspective on films, having grown up, as the child of, the star of a big science fiction film from the 1950s that's so well remembered today. It's an interesting film too. It's produced by George Powell, so that means that the production values are going to be higher than a lot of other 1950s science fiction films. It's shot in glorious color, and it's genuinely terrifying. I have to say, the first time I can remember seeing War of the Worlds, I think I was probably a teenager, maybe a tween, something like that, and it's frightening. The Martians look more like cameras, like that. Well, they look more like GoPros now, I guess, than anything else. They hover and they have lenses as such, and the lenses are use primary colors: red, green, blue, kind of like early televisions used to in the 50s. And it's just a great classic science fiction film. It also has some Christian overtones in it. Gene Barry and Anne Robinson are the love interest in the film, and at some point they get separated. And Barry goes looking for Anne Robinson, and something she said to him earlier in the film leads him to a church, and that's where he finds her, trying to help people who are not doing well. And seeing that that's her place in the world is sort of reaffirming, and it does have a very heartwarming, moral. I suppose it's the word I'm looking for. In the end of the film, the Martians do not win, however, because God has given us bacteria on Earth, and that kills the Martians. Like I said, it's a very interesting wrap with Christianity, that is, around the film. Probably my favorite 1950s sci-fi film that has anything to do with Mars is Invaders from Mars. It's the classic film shot by Republic, which is interesting because Republic was a smaller studio and didn't have the resources that some of the other studios had. Certainly not the resources that produced War of the Worlds. But Invaders from Mars is still another genuinely frightening science fiction film. And it stars Arthur Franz, Hilary Brooke, Helena Carter, and Leif Erikson. All four of those performers were well-established character actors and very good at what they did. Republic produced Invaders from Mars for about $300,000, which was quite a bit of money for Republic, but not much money for a Technicolor science fiction film. And they do a great job with it. If you've ever seen the film, one of the creepiest aspects of it is this fishbowl that has a Martian head in it. And the Martian head is sort of the intellect, for the Martians. And the first time I saw it, and there again, I was probably a teenager or something like that. It's genuinely creepy. Even looking at it today, and I watched it just this morning, I was surprised at how well the effects hold up, how good the acting is, considering that it was shot very quickly, but it was shot by professionals and some great actors in the cast as well. And just a terrific film. It was remade in 1986. Karen Black was in the as I recall, was in the Hilary Brooke role in the remake. And Hercules knows how I feel about remakes. I'm genuinely not, generally, I should say, not very fond of them. The remake of Invaders from Mars is pretty solid, however, and having Karen Black in it, one of my favorite actresses from the 70s, kind of keeps it in good stead with me, obviously. But if you haven't seen Invaders from Mars, please reach for a copy of it. Unfortunately, existing copies aren't the greatest. There are some negative scratches, even in the copy that I have. It has not been treated to a restoration, unfortunately. And I wish I could say that it has, but it has not. Moving along into the 1960s, whereas films about Martians and Mars in the 1950s had been very serious and life or death affairs. In the 1960s, it was given more of a lighthearted atmosphere, I suppose, in several films produced by American International Pictures. One of them is Pajama Party, which is the fourth of 7 entries in American International's Beach Party series. Frankie Avalon is not in the film. Well, that's not true. He is in the film very briefly. The male lead in Pajama Party is Tommy Kirk, who has his first outing as a Martian, and his love interest in the film is who other than Annette Funicello. And the movie has very little to do with Mars and everything else to do with early 60s fun in the sun beach party. Very innocent, for the time. And it's played as comedy. And believe it or not, one of our prized possessions here at the Walker household is a near mint album of the soundtrack of Pajama Party from 1964. It's in great shape. It cost a small fortune, but glad to have it. It's a terrific piece of memorabilia. This time of year, since we're so close to the holidays, I would be negligent to not mention Oz Conquers the Martians.
I knew
I was waiting for that.
Over the years, it has become a tradition in our house. As we are decorating our tree, we will watch Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. It's a public domain title, so you can freely watch it anywhere. And it was shot in a few colors, so it's not a black and white film, but it is a lot of fun. It's much maligned, and I think because it was a cheaply produced children's film from the mid 1960s, 1964, mostly starring soap opera actors and Broadway actors who were out of work. It was shot in Long Island in a small, cold studio, from what I understand. But it's done pretty well, and it's more engaging than a lot of reviews would have you believe. Actually, I think it's a lot of fun. It's eminently watchable.
It's cute.
Professionally produced. It's quick and it's cheap, but it's professionally produced. These people are experienced actors who knew how to deliver lines live because they had to do it on Broadway and in old soap operas from the 50s and 60s. So they know their lines, they're hitting their marks, and I'm guessing that since they were very used to quick turnarounds on sets and things, we're able to get this shot quickly and cheaply. Like I said, about $200,000, and it's probably one of the things it's best remembered for is Golden Globes actress Pia Zadora, who appears in it as one of the Martian children. And is sadly one of the only people still alive from the production of the movie. But so much fun to watch it, however. The lead Martian, who is not a nice person in it, is Moldar. And he was portrayed by actor Vincent Beck. And actually, this is Beck's first starring film role, I guess I should say. He had done a lot of Broadway in the 1950s before wandering into television production in the early 1960s. He had done a lot of commercials. And after this film, actually did quite a bit of television. He was a New York-based actor, but acted in a number of television shows in the 60s and 70s, TV movies, and some films as well. but such a fun movie. Uh, the Since it was a children's film, it was trotted out year after year beyond its original production date in 1964. Every Christmas, it was put into a Christmas package and sent to theaters, where children would watch an afternoon's worth of Christmas programming in the 1960s and 1970s. It became forgotten after a while, and Mystery Science Theater used it as one of their experiments, I believe in season 5, and that gave the film new life. It exposed it to a new audience, along with a couple of other holiday films that MST3K tacked back in the day. I know I've rambled on a little too long, so I will fast forward to a Martian film that I don't like, and that is Mars Attacks. I'm sure that that's heresy with some people because it's a Tim Burton film. I had really high hopes in 1996 when it first came out. Sat in the theater watching this, and I thought, oh my God, I wasted $3.25 on this piece of because it's terrible.
It's terrible. It is.
It shouldn't be. I mean, 30 years ago, they spent $70 million on this film. It should be fantastic. And it is Tim Burton, who usually turns out a quality product. This isn't it, however. And it's got a great cast. Pierce Brosnan, Jack Nicholson, Annette Bening, Pam Grier, Jim Brown. I love those throwbacks, but the film is just a piece of junk. And one of the reasons it's terrible is that it's really low camp and high production values always leads to a turkey. It's just something you cannot replicate camp. I don't care how much money you throw at it. Camp is naturally occurring, and Mars Attacks just isn't it. And if you ask me, it's way worse than Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. And that's my diatribe for tonight. Thank you, Hercules.
Thank you so very much.
You forgot S.J. Parker and Michael J. Fox.
Yes, it does have Sarah Jessica Parker. You are correct.
And a role I'm sure she would love to forget.
No,
I enjoyed the film, but that's a conversation for another time.
As I understand, Sarah Jessica Parker is much saltier about her appearance in Ed Wood than her appearance in Martians.
Now, Brian, how can people get in contact with you?
Well, if you want to interact with me on social media, you only have one choice pretty much anymore, and that is Facebook. I am on Facebook daily and interact very often, with passersby and such. I am still on Twitter, otherwise known as X or whatever Elon decided to call it today. However, like a lot of people, I've lost interest in it. So I don't post, I only lurk. I do lurk daily on Twitter, so I will confess to that. And you can visit me on the World Wide Web at briansdrivingtheater.com, where the site is updated every day, and there's a movie of the day.
Every day, and it's still incredibly awesome. And if you want to feel the retro feel, go there.
And the retro HTML.
And if you could time travel, you would enjoy that, although slightly different and more polished each time for the past 25 plus years. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Hercules.
Setna of Khemet, how can people find you and follow you and get involved with what you're doing?
Well, pretty soon take I-95. Okay. Or is it US 1? I don't even know. But you can get me at mkwaterman at iCloud.com. You can get me on Facebook, Michael K. Waterman at Facebook. Phone a Wizard, because I'm the wizard. Phone a Wizard on Facebook. You can get me on my phone number, which is not going to change, by the way. Verizon's upset because I'll have traveling charges or whatever roaming charges. That's 516-650-3691, guys. Or you can get me through that long-haired bearded guy over there named Hercules.
And Setna is developing a new show that is going to deal with ancient Egypt and ancient astronauts and all sorts of celestial mysteries like the ones he's been introducing on the show. So that's under development. Expect to see it the first quarter of 2024. And he's been guesting on a lot of different shows, and he's a lot of fun on each one. And now we go to Tillie Treadwell, the one, the only. Can't wait to read your writings in that book that's coming out on time travel, and your other writings as well. How can people contact you and get involved with your adventures?
Well, thank you, Hercules. I'm glad to hear that you are excited about that. I have some awesome news that you may find even more intriguing.
Okay.
So not only can people contact me at talktillietome@gmail.com, but thanks to some encouragement from our dear friend Tim and a few others, I started my own YouTube show. So,
Awesome. That is fantastic.
yeah.
Post it on my page and let people know about it.
Absolutely. So that is the Weird Walk Home here on YouTube, and it's also on Spotify. We are working on getting together a paranormal themed original merchandise shop, as well as a paranormal themed gourmet e-shop too. And I not only release now weekly and seasonal episodes and specials, but I'm starting to have people on for interviews. So actually, just yesterday, I interviewed my husband about how paranormal activity is contagious in his experience and everything that he's gone through since marrying me. And then Tim is going to be joining me at the beginning of December. And right after Thanksgiving, I have on the star and director of the new Ghosts of Carmel, Maine documentary.
Oh, fantastic. I'm so
Yeah.
happy. Congratulations. And I wish
Thank
you great
you.
success with that endeavor.
Yes, and thank you. And I would truly love it if any of you gentlemen would like to come on and have a chat with me for an interview. Not only would it truly help me out, but I think that it could be a blast. So if anyone is interested, please do let me know and we can collaborate. Thank
I
you.
would be interested, so you can mark me down somewhere on the list, and when you have an opening, we'll talk.
I'll email you tonight, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. And next we go to Tim Swartz. And what is new and exciting in the world of publishing paranormal explorations, and how can people link up with the wonderful tradition that you have maintained and that you're expanding?
Well, sure, Hercules. Well, as you said, I mean, we're working on a new book right now, and I'm waiting for your chapter. So,
Get it in the next 2 weeks.
oh, fantastic! Sean, our co-writer and intrepid proofreader, is looking forward to reading your piece. And I also want to recommend Tillie's Weird Walk Home.
Thank you.
If anybody out there has not seen it yet, look it up, check out the episodes. She only has a few so far, but the ones that she has produced so far are really great. And so
Thank you so much for that endorsement. I'm trying my best. It's my first time, and I wouldn't have done it without your help, your care, and your encouragement, my good friend.
well, you can tell from watching it that you've done your homework, and the episodes are really good so far. I also want to say, Hercules, that I do remember seeing Santa Claus versus the Martians when I was a kid at a like a Saturday matinee at my local theater. Now, I doubt if it was the initial release in '64, but it would have been sometime in the mid to early '60s. So I'm dating myself, but I do remember going and seeing that. So and it's just as good as everyone remembers. So now, if you're interested in reading any of my books, including our most current one, Mimics the Others Among Us, so you can find it on Amazon.com. along with all of my other books. Just type in Tim R. Swartz, and they'll all come tumbling out for your reading pleasure, both as print and ebooks. As Hercules mentioned, we're working on a new book right now, collecting chapters, and I'm expecting it to come out early in 2024. So that's I'll leave it at that, Hercules, and give somebody else a chance to talk.
Thank you. And I'm relating what I'm writing to what I wrote before. I think I started that in the last that had like a theme. I'm going to tie them all together.
Excellent. Excellent. Look forward to reading it.
And last but not least, Mr. Nick Curto, founder of Organizations and Artist Supreme.
Thank you, Hercules. We are celebrating our 25th year of doing 2 meetings per month in Manhattan for Disclosure Network New York. I'm very proud of my organization and everybody in it. They're incredible researchers, and we've gotten amazing data on many subjects. Just an invitation here for the first meeting of the new year, which will be on Sunday, January 7th at 2:30. We're going to have a party, a special party, where everybody is encouraged to dress as a being from a different planet, with making your name, whatever your name would like to be, and a short, perhaps paragraph that you will be addressing the group about your planet and who you are. And there'll be prizes, first, second, and third prize for the best costumes. And that's going to be a lot of fun. If you would like to get an invitation to that, and certainly everybody here is more than welcome, that would be such a wonderful thing. I'm going to give you my email address right now, and that is NICKNYNY1, and that's the numeral 1 at gmail.com. Again, NICKNYNY1 at gmail.com, and I'll provide you with the details. But this is going to be one heck of a party, and I would really recommend everybody going. It will be such a lot of fun.
Thank you very much, Nick, and thank you to everybody, and thank you to our wonderful audience. Until next time, joyous journeys, amazing adventures, and happy Thanksgiving to all, because that is coming up.
Good night.
And good night.
Good night, Hercules.
Good night.